New York's criminal tax fraud trial of the Trump Organization is temporarily on hold.
Yeah, that's right. The unexpected delay comes after the company's controller, Jeffrey McConney, tested positive for COVID-19. McConney took the stand as the prosecution's first witness in the trial. The 67-year-old coughed throughout his first 2 days of testimony, and he tested positive for coronavirus during the court's lunch break on Tuesday. Court protocol says McConney must isolate for the next 6 days. The trial could resume as soon as November 7th. CBS News investigative reporter Graham Cates is here. He joins us now. Welcome, Graham. So the trial was delayed because the first witness had COVID. Explain to everybody what role McConney plays in the Trump Organization and how important his testimony is to this overall case.
The prosecution started with a very important witness to start. He's the current controller of the company, and he plays into this narrative the prosecution is trying to build that this effort to hide benefits and other kinds of income from tax authorities was kind of a part of a corporate-wide strategy for executives at the company. So here is Jeff McConney, the controller, who kind of runs the day-to-day business operations. We learned in testimony, kind of oversaw the payroll operations. And they had him on the stand talking about where he and another executive who has already pled guilty, Alan Weisselberg, fit into the overall dynamic of pay at the company and approval of benefits at the company.
And in order for cases like this to be won or lost, it's basically you've got the books, the numbers, where money moved, but you also need their testimony to say how and why these things were done. So despite, McConney coughing through most of what he had to say, what did we learn that was new from his testimony?
There were two kind of important revelations yesterday in terms of both what the prosecution is trying to show and also just our interest in watching, from a historical perspective, this company tied to a president. And the first thing was that they showed a lease rider from the CFO's luxury apartment that was signed by Donald Trump himself. And that, besides being interesting, kind of fit into this narrative that it wasn't just the CFO acting on his own, hiding his own benefits, but that, in fact, other people at the company, including the top boss himself, were aware that he was receiving these benefits. And then, of course, it's the company that processes your W-2, or we've learned in this case, another kind of form called an I-9. And so that's what the prosecution's trying to show. Even Donald Trump was kind of aware of what was going on. And then the second, I think, big revelation was that right after Donald Trump became president and he left the company decided to do an internal investigation. They hired an outside lawyer to look into their own corporate tax practices. And at the end of this was a memo. And I say this noting that we know very little about this memo because there was a bunch of objections, and then the judge said, all we can do is acknowledge that there was some kind of memo. And then Jeff McConney explained that the result of it was that he was advised to do some things differently when it came to how he managed. And at being pushed by the prosecutor, that meant including with some of the payroll things that led to the charges in this case. So after Trump becomes president, they have an investigation into their own tax practices, as the prosecutor said, to clean things up, and they ended up changing things.
Wow.
I'm thinking about McConney coughing through his testimony for the first 2 days and all the people who were probably in that courtroom now getting tested. This is a jury trial. It's incumbent on both the prosecution and the defense to try and win over the people in the room who are now probably worried that maybe they have COVID too. What are the strategies for both of those sides, Graham? And is there any concern that maybe the COVID has spread now?
So, well, the very first thing that the judge said when the prosecution brought news of this yesterday was, stay away from me. I should probably get tested now. And that's because he and McConney were no further apart than me and you, Errol, for the whole time. And McConney was like you could hear it from, I was all the way in the back of the room, so. And you could hear it very clearly. He was coughing throughout it, and he was right next to the judge. He's right behind the court reporter. The jury's maybe a little bit further away, but yeah, I mean, New York State's rule here is that they have to close for a minimum of 2 days. And I think if none of the key players test positive in this, they'll be back on Monday. But a lot of that also has to do with Jeff himself. He has to recover because he's not excused from the witness stand yet.
Incredible. Hey, it's another reminder we're not through this thing, and COVID is still running through folks
We're all going to
over
go
the
get
country
tested now.
in about 60 seconds. Graham Cates, though, great to have you here. Thank you very
Thanks,
much.
Graham.